Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting of Monday, September 23rd, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Adams?
Present.
Counselor Catrona?
He's excused.
Counselor Daniel?
Present.
Counselor Jovan?
Present.
Counselor Lazo?
Present.
Counselor Manna?
She will be delayed.
Counselor Marquetti?
Present.
Counselor Nash?
Present.
Counselor Steves?
Present.
We have a quorum. Item 3, consider and accept the Town Council minutes of Monday, September 9th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion, errors, corrections, omissions? Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This actually isn't related, but can we please speak up tonight because these speakers are once again not working?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
I can hear you, but I can't hear
Yeah, it was
across
very
the table.
difficult to hear our recording clerk as well, so
Thank you.
maybe take a second for, make sure that it might be on delay. Okay. If there's all those in favor of acceptance? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Subcommittee reports, General Government, Councilor Steves.
Haven't had a meeting recently and don't have one scheduled.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, meeting of Department of Public Works Subcommittee was held last week. Unfortunately, I had to excuse myself, so I appreciate that Councilor Jovan handled the meeting for one important item about the extension of Veolia's contract to run the wastewater treatment plant, which I understand came through with recommendation to council for approval. So thank you for doing that. No meetings scheduled as yet.
Thank you. Education and Human Services, Councilor Lazo.
I have no report at this time. I'll address the agenda item on a favorable vote, and I have no meeting scheduled.
Thank you. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, P&D meeting was held on the 16th of September, and then again this evening, discussing, or for tonight's meeting, agenda item number 10 and 18. No meeting is scheduled in the near future. That's all I have.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property, Council Manor is delayed this evening. She does have an item on this agenda. And there is a meeting scheduled for this Thursday at 6 p.m. I believe she changed the time to 6 p.m. To discuss an appointment to the fire department, as well as 2 grants that the town was awarded through the state that were put forward by our representatives, Representative Durant and Senator Fatman. So have a discussion about acceptance of those grants on that agenda. Chairman's announcements. I have a few announcements. I did mention on Thursday that we had received a letter from former town manager Michael Coughlin relative to a 911 memorial. I appreciate his efforts to get this discussion started. He's been all over social media with that. He asked me to, again, mention it this evening. I had advised him that we did discuss it last Thursday. I think it's a topic that we should maybe take that we should take a look at and discuss. What type of memorial are we looking for? Is it an overall 911 memorial? Certainly we respect the fact that Southbridge sent first responders down to New York on that fateful day. But whatever we do, we should do it in a thoughtful manner, and we will look forward to discussing that further throughout the year. We appreciate his efforts to bring that to the forefront. It will not be forgotten, and we will work it through the process. Public hearings, I just want to remind you that there are 2 public hearings this week. The first one will be held on Wednesday, September 25th at 6:45 p.m. here in the council chambers. I reminded my fellow councilors that it's a joint council planning board, so please make every effort to be here as councilors because it is a joint public hearing. The first one will be to receive public comment and consider amendment to the Southbridge zoning bylaw that will add section 8.9 regulations of signs, removing the existing sign regulations from the general bylaws, section 9-202. Anybody interested in reviewing that, the proposed bylaw text may be inspected at the town clerk's office Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it was also there the rest of the week. At 7:15 PM on the same evening, again, the Town Council and the Southbridge Planning Board will hold a joint public hearing here in the council chambers. The purpose of that public hearing is to receive public comment and consider an amendment to the Southbridge zoning bylaw that will add Section 8.7 adult use marijuana establishments and moving the current Section 8.7 adult-oriented businesses to the new Section 8.8. For those people that may have not tuned in on Thursday, last Thursday, the Town Council held a council meeting of the whole. It was televised, and I'd like to thank the cable workers that are up here that volunteer their time for another night out at a meeting. I appreciate the fact that you were here to put that out to the public. Town Council did vote to repeal the adult use marijuana, recreational marijuana bylaw. That was as a result of the vote in the June election. It was contingent upon the adoption of the zone bylaws. So any input that the public has as to the new zoning regulations relative to adult use marijuana, please be there at 7:15. Had the opportunity to attend the Southbridge Business Partnerships, the Harvest Fest this week, and what a great day, beautiful weather. I'm sure other councilors will comment on it that were there. But just, it certainly had expanded from the previous year. Last year was big, this year was even bigger. It was a great day out, and I'd like to thank all that participated in that and put that together. In reviewing charter and charter requirements, a charter review committee will need to be formed. I've mentioned this a couple times. It's every 5 years. The last one was in 2015. So we will be looking to put together, and I want to start now to get interested parties that would like to work on the charter review. The last one was chaired by former councilor Kathleen Nicola, who just recently passed away. Please send a letter of interest to the chair through the town manager's office. We need a 5-member board. They will meet. They have 1 year to provide recommendations to the town council for any changes to the charter. So I'm looking for any letter of interest. We had absolutely none when we requested anybody for the bylaw review. So this is the opportunity. If you have questions about the charter, you'd like to help out, we do need a 5-member board for that. Lastly, this council, I just bring up to date on town manager goals and objectives. As you're aware, the council held a meeting about 6 weeks ago, I think, to formulate goals and objectives. We had met with the town manager at that point and had gone through some items. Councilor Daniel and I met with the town manager to review the status of, incorporating those into the document. He referred that back to us. Councilor Daniel and I met to review those items that we had discussed to formulate and put into a document. We keyed in on many of the issues or the concerns that councils had throughout. We have that into the format. My question to my fellow councilors, I'd like to get this adopted by at least October 7th, at the October 7th meeting. We'll be sending over the document to the town manager for his review, but I'd like to get a sense from my fellow councilors, do you want to do that at the October 7th meeting of the regular council meeting to discuss those items, or would you prefer to have another special town council meeting? So I'm just looking for some input. So you can get, Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With adequate time to absorb once again what we had discussed and what this document now includes, I think that including it as part of our regular town council meetings, it's fine by me, provided we don't have more pressing matters on the agenda.
Right, and I think, quite honestly, there's nothing that is out of the ordinary. I think Councilor Daniel and I really look to say, what are some of the things that are ongoing items throughout the last year that we had carried over, and parse those out into maybe a separate document incorporated into the overall goals and objectives, and then work into some of the items that I had discussed of what our plan would be for the year, such as the DPW school facilities plan, as to, okay, some key information on that, school facilities report. So I don't think there's anything that would require a lot of discussion on our part. It's trying to parse out exactly targeted goals and those that are ongoing. So I don't think it will be a lengthy discussion, so I think it's maybe something, but we'll definitely get that out to you so that you could look at it ahead of time within the next couple days, so that you could take a look at it and not have discussion amongst us to violate any perception of open meeting law, but just be prepared for the October 7th meeting.
Of course.
Okay?
Right on.
So without objection, I'll do that on the October 7th meeting. Okay. And I think that's all I have this evening.
Mr. Chairman,
Council Marquetti.
I got a call from a resident that wanted to know why are we doing a marijuana bylaw meeting, considering that it is already in the zoning bylaws?
It is not in the zoning bylaws. We have a prohibition in the zoning bylaws for recreational marijuana. What
But
we
it
do,
is, I looked at the bylaws and it is recreation marijuana.
No, it's a-
in the
no,
zoning bylaw.
it's medical use marijuana.
I read it. It says,
Well, we can have a conversation
Okay.
off topic on this. It was
All right.
specific a medical use zoning bylaw.
okay,
and
but if
that-
you look at the zoning bylaw itself, it does say recreational use. And I know that the town council voted on it. I believe so. I mean, you could look it up if you want, but,
I know we spend a lot of time on medical use marijuana.
All right.
And I don't believe so. But we could discuss that further.
all right, thank you.
But thank you. In any event, I think there needs to be some changes, some concerns about where some of these facilities might go. So that's why it was contingent upon adoption of that. Ms. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A number of things to announce tonight. First of all, the Southbridge Town Manager's Substance Abuse Advisory Committee is going to be holding a panel discussion on the issue of substance abuse. It is this Thursday, September 26th, at the Southbridge Town Hall at 6 p.m. in the Town Council Chamber. There will be a wide-ranging discussion here across the substance abuse issues, alcohol, things like opioids, and even vaping will be discussed, and we'll have a number of professionals to answer anyone's questions if they come to the meeting. We really want to have an open discussion about this problem. Many towns are trying to deal with it not just across the state, but across the country, and we want to be in the forefront of those issues. And I think the members of the council have been very engaged in this issue with me. If you look in front of us tonight, if the cameras can show it, we're highlighting what is called Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd to the 31st. It's an issue to really make the public aware of the issues of substance abuse. And you can look at redribbon.org and find the website, and you can find out how you can participate in this process. Particularly, we want to get the message out to everybody, but in particular, we want to get out the message to children who we never want to start in this process. Anything we can do to educate them is very important. Parents of school children will see soon that they'll be getting a direct mail piece right to their house from the Town Manager's Substance Abuse Committee, explaining to them about how they can talk to their kids about this issue. It is a difficult conversation, but it's an extremely important conversation for people to have with their children. So we want to encourage that. Council's been supporting Red Ribbon Week. They put up the money to fund some of these activities, and we want to use the limited amount of money we have the best way we can to get out the message across the town. We feel very confident that we've been able to do that. We've had speakers in the school system. You'll see on Red Ribbon Week, a lot of people will be wearing ribbons just to bring recognition to that week and what's going on. Also, a couple of issues that are going on in town. I can't get into the details of it, but the fire union contract, there's a tentative agreement that the council will be taking up soon. Also, the animal control shelter. I've had discussions with the architects and with Bay Path. Bay Path is now, has in their hands the final plans for that building. I do want to recognize, while it's going to be an important building, obviously protecting animals is extremely important to us. When you use Bay Path in this process, it's going to take longer. So please understand that this project is going to take perhaps double the amount of time it might take just hiring a contractor, because the kids only work part of the year and only part-time. So they do have the plans, they're looking at them, they're seeing exactly what part of the plans they feel they can do, and we'll be meeting with them to talk about it in the future. Obviously, the labor work that they do doesn't cost the town anything, so that's a huge win for us. Again, but the negative side of that is the slowness of the project. So I think it's good news that it's going to be a community event by having people involved, and having the kids use it as a learning tool, I think, is really, really important. We have a press release from Whitewater, which is our water company that runs our water treatment plant. It's an immediate release. It says Harrington Hospital to perform fire flow pump test. Southbridge. Harrington Hospital will perform hydrant flow tests on Tuesday, October 8, 2019 at approximately 9 o'clock p.m. The location tested will be Harrington Hospital at 94 South Street. The procedure will include testing the operation and capacity of the fire pump on the property. The department requests that during this period, customers check their water before washing clothes. Customers may also get accumulated sediments in their house laterals the next morning. This will clear after a brief run of the water at the tap. So again, if you run your water a minute or two, it'll clear out any sediment and your water will be clear again. Another announcement, same thing from the water department. Southbridge Water Department will start its semi-annual hydrant flushing program on Sunday, September 29, 2019 at approximately 9 p.m. and continue during overnight hours for approximately 6 to 8 weeks during the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. Flushing will start in the Westville area and continue easterly throughout the town. The procedure will include the cleaning of the reservoir intake screens, flushing accumulated sediments from the water mains, and testing the operation of each hydrant. The department requests that during this period, customers check their water before washing clothes. Customers may also get accumulated sediments in their house laterals and experience some discolored water. This will clear after a brief run of the water at the tap. Please contact the Southbridge Water Department at 508-764-3207 if you have any questions or comments. Again, you're going to notice a little bit of brown water. All you can do is run it through for a minute or two, and it'll come back to be clean again. It's just running the sediments out of the water. That's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman, for announcements.
Thank you. Next, for presentations, we have the Fire Station Building Committee update. It's an update to a previous presentation that the board had made to this council. Again, I will step aside for a brief moment as I chair that committee and turn the gavel to Councilor Daniel to moderate.
Thank you. You got it.
Okay. Thank you, councilors. Again, I'm here today as now the chair of the Fire Station Building Committee, and most of this presentation, the majority of this will be done by Deputy Chief Hulick, who is a member of the Fire Station Building Committee. As you're aware, we were charged many years ago, probably about 4 years ago, to do a feasibility study. And actually, we had a long time building committee. This is just for the new councils that are here. That was in effect for many years, kind of went stagnant. Former acting town manager Kevin Pecos had put together another group, of which brought couple of the old members of that committee along with new members. Our committee has worked over the last 3 years to study the fire station, the needs of the fire station, and develop what we believe is a conceptual design and possible financing of a new station. What Chief Norman is also here with us today. I'd like to thank him for being here, as well as Captain Matthew, who's here, who is the newest member of our committee. And unfortunately, we lost one of our members, Catherine Nicola, who was a valuable asset to our committee. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her family. She served with me on the school building project. She brought a lot of knowledge to the process and a lot of passion for a new station. So what you have in front of me, the chief will have, deputy chief will have that it's September 13th file, but what I passed out was what we came back with on May 30th, or what the architect came back, based on our conversations to the council. I believe it may have been February, March, somewhere around March meeting where we came to the council and we gave a detailed analysis of the existing conditions at the fire station and some possible solutions. And at that time, one of the recommended sites that had come out of that study was a location on Marsh Ave. Upon conclusion of that, we had a lot of feedback from counselors as well as the public to the concerns about that specific location being a residential area, the roads, the schools, and could we look again at some of the previous sites that we had studied. As a committee, we went back, looked at, well, the majority of the opinions was, one, reuse of the existing station, a rebuild, renovation, addition onto that footprint. And while we had an estimated cost, it wasn't a detailed analysis by the architect. They'd just thrown some numbers at it, general numbers. So they went back and we charged the architect, which had done a lot of this work with really no additional cost. For the old station, we did have to give up some new monies to study to do cost estimating. That's all they asked for, not to do any of the design work, but just the cost estimated because they had to send that out to somebody else. So we asked them to really get a detailed price, cost structure, and conceptual design of the existing fire station. And as a committee, we talked about what other locations would possibly the station go to, included on those areas that we had presented before. One of the areas that the committee had come back to was the Central Street location, and it was requested at that time to move forward and see if at all possible a station could go there and what the cost of that would be. So what we have here tonight is the presentation, an updated presentation that was presented by the architect, and also our committee made a final decision as what we wanted to recommend to council, because that was Councilor Nash's question, is what is our recommendation? And I think at that time we weren't prepared to do a recommendation. We wanted some feedback. Based on that information we got back, we are comfortable in providing a recommendation to the council at this time. As you'll notice, in my other role as council chair, I did not put a motion to accept this report at this specific meeting because I think it's important that when we have some of these presentations that are very specific and have long-term implications both financially and to the town, that you really need to sit back and, okay, absorb what was provided to you, and we'll have a discussion in the October 7th meeting with a motion to whether accept this recommendation or not. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Deputy Chief Hulick, who will provide an updated summary of some of the previous information. We'll go through that pretty briefly, and then what the Central Street location will look like, as well as the existing location. And at that time, we'll open it up to any questions. So thank you. I'll turn this over to Deputy Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, councilors, Mr. Manager, and the public. Thank you for having me here tonight and provide you with an update of the information that we have at this point regarding the station. Some of it will be a review to you. I wanted to bring the newer councilors up to speed with it. So we'll start right from the beginning. Our station is 120 years old at this point. We've identified some of the shortfalls with it, and we no longer are able to utilize it to its full effect. We have to purchase trucks that are specifically designed to fit in the building, which we're paying premium prices for, and we do not have the usable space that we need to move forward. So some of the things that have been identified before, and you can see them pointed out, is the spaces, the trucks moving in and out, trying to get around the spaces. A lot of the additional square footage that we'll be looking to add to a facility is moving around vehicles and adapting to ADA compliances in the public spaces of the building. You can see some of the structural flaws there, cracks in the old sections of the building that were the last two bays of the building were actually built by the firemen back in the 50s and 60s. Stairways, things within the structure do not meet code compliance of today. If there was any thought of looking at the station as an option, most of it would have to be gutted and completely redone, and we don't know what's inside those walls. So square footage is what we need. The Elm Street station, if you count all of the spaces that we have things stored, is about 22,000 square feet. We have stuff stored at the salt shed on Dresser Hill Road. We have stuff at the Morris Street Field House. We have stuff at 185 Gulfwood Road, the DPW facility. So when you add up all those spaces that we have, we're taking up about 30,000 square feet. We need those spaces because back in the 1950s, an engine took up about 300 square feet. Today, it's more than double that. And the modern ladder truck, the ladder truck that's there is our tower ladder, which is 53 feet long, and it takes up almost 1,000 square feet of foot space. Operating around the apparatus, you need to be able to walk around the apparatus without striking things. So this picture shows the doors open and still space enough to walk between the vehicles. This is what's recommended, which is 16 feet of ceiling clearance and 8 feet between the apparatus. What we have is 12-foot ceilings, and in some places where the beam is, it's actually about 10 feet, and there's only 5 feet between the apparatus. So if you open the doors of the apparatus, they strike each other, and you cannot walk between them safely. We spent a lot of time in this programming phase where the architect needed to know what we needed to do and the spaces that we needed to accomplish those tasks. Going back to when Chief DeFranzo was still here, we spent, I don't even want to estimate how many hours that we spent in this phase, but the workload on the front side takes away from what we'll have to do later as we move forward. So based on that needs assessment and programming, the architect came up with a conceptual design, and that conceptual design was this floor plan, which included 7 main apparatus bays, 5 smaller apparatus bays to one side, and 3 administrative bays. This footprint took up about 36,000 square feet, and this has a functional flow. It separates areas of the building. We have a working area of the apparatus bays that keeps the contaminants, things of that nature, in that area. And then there's an area that you clear through, and then you have the administrative spaces, which are clean on the other side. One of the ways that we would look to do that is through this plan here. What this represents is our gear room, the decon facilities, and then the showering facilities. So coming back from a fire or any type of incident, you'd walk through that center aisle, and you'd strip down your gear and equipment and clean it. And the laundry would be there for the PPE as well as duty clothing, and then you would go into the showers and walk out clean the other side. So you're not bringing any contaminants into the rest of the building, and once the gear, the PPE is laundered, it goes back into the gear room. The gear room is under negative pressure to remove any off-gassing that continues afterwards. So now that we had the footprint of that building, we needed to look at the sites. The sites that were discussed were the existing station, Dresser Park, Foster Street, the Beechwood on Main Street, North Street, Marsh Ave, and then Central Street locations. And we looked at those and tried to fit that 36,000 square feet on those sites. Initially, like the chairman said, we came back and said that Marsh Ave was what the engineers felt was the most feasible site. And then we had subsequent discussions with members of the public and as led by the council as well. So the existing fire station, if you try and drop that 36,000 square feet, there's nowhere to move around it. There's no parking. There's no area for us to train or anything around it. The Central Street location, excuse me as I go back to that. The Central Street, it shows there, the newest version of that comes later in the program, which I'll show you, but this indicated a need for us to take more space to address our parking needs and training spaces. So the ad reno possibility was looked at, and like I said, we came up with the scope of structural repairs are really unknown in the building of what we would need to do in the existing structure. It requires reducing our spaces and not having the program pathways that we were trying to design. The floor plan under this location showed the physical fitness area actually in the basement. And if any of you have been in the basement, our basement is damp, has water problems. So all those things would need to be remediated before you could even discuss that. So we come up with a huge retaining wall that would need to be rebuilt behind there. In that center area right there is where that cell tower and communications facility is. So we would still have to move around that, trying to be on this site. The apparatus maneuverability just isn't there. We do have longer trucks. and the opinion of probable cost was about $3 million more than the other options, based on the fact of the contingencies, also in the fact of needing to stage as we would go from one side to another as they would try and move us during the construction process. So this was a possibility of the floor plan that it would look. Basically, like I've said, we came up with many inefficiencies of how this is laid out. The architects were charged with the fact of, can we stick this amount of square footage there? And they were able to do it, but it is not efficient in the manner that we need to operate. So moving forward with the Central Street site, these are some of the areas that would be affected by it. Obviously, the largest portion of it would be essentially where the convenience store is now, and then we would be looking to move all the way up Central Street on that side and essentially make the town parking lot much larger, and then the footprint would look something like this. What this shows also is the Mass DOT project that's in 25%. We met with the DPW administration, we met with VHB, the project managers for that, and coincided trying to get everything from the fire station along with their project on one page to show how it would affect with the new traffic patterns, all those things. So this is fitting the facility on this site, giving us enough parking. It actually gives the town parking lot a few more spaces as well. We did have to adjust some of the administrative spaces to fit within the footprint. So this one comes up at a little over 34,000 square feet. Still has the 7 bays, still has the 5 auxiliary bays and the 3 administrative bays. It gives us about 60 feet of apron in front of the building before you get to La Rochelle Way in the design, and we have already discussed traffic controls and things along those lines. So as you can see, some of the things that we came up with are it keeps all of our operational activities in the same level where the firefighters' living quarters would be, so there'd be a 2-level building. All of the firefighter operations and living quarters would be on the lower level, and the administrative spaces would be on the higher level. We'd be able to share some of the project costs, possibly the engineering cost with the DOT project as it moved forward, depending on the timing of those projects. The cons, we have discussed the potential traffic issues, but we would have the ability to set those controls in place as that project moved forward. The other cons is the cost of land acquisition is going to be higher. In this program, it's been estimated at about $1.3 million, somewhere around there, for land acquisition. And then the last con is overcoming Nuisance Brook. There's a line that goes right through here. Nuisance Brook would actually still continue to go there, and we would have to have the engineering to overcome that. They said that it did not concern them as far as how that would have to happen. They do it in circumstances all over the place. So they weren't concerned about it. They just needed to know where it was, what depths it were to move forward. So these are some of the renderings of what the station may conceptually look like. So from right here, you're kind of looking from the Hook and Central Street, Hook and Hamilton location, and that would be the main entrance into the administrative facility. You can see some of the grade changes. Meeting with VHB and the DPW, there will be some additional grade changes. This was just conceptual so you could see something. And then this would be the back side, the rear, and there would end up being a wall here to get to the higher level of the rest of the parking lot. And then this would be what you would kind of see from the Central and La Rochelle Way visions. So like I said, it's a little bit smaller, just over 34,000 square feet, but it does meet all of our operational needs. They moved the building back to set it in so that it fits on the site and gives us the apron that we need to check trucks in the morning, have a safe place to operate and train in front of the building, unlike we have on Elm Street currently. And then the upper floor would be the administrative spaces, training rooms, emergency operations center, all of those types of facilities. So the project cost, you have some of those in front of you now. The one that I'm posting right now is the one for Central Street. So the anticipated project cost, the direct construction costs are about $19 million. The indirect owner costs are about $5.5 million. Property acquisition, we discussed at 1.2, 1.3 million, for a total project cost at the Central Street location of $25.7. So in the end of May, the committee voted to move forward and present to you the Central Street location. So we are before you looking for direction as to move forward. But we have voted as a committee to move forward with the Central Street location. That's the end of the presentation, and certainly open to questions. Councilor Marquetti.
Now, I've had a few residents ask me about this Central Street location and some of the concerns they have, and so maybe you could address. Coming out of Central Street would be a very difficult turn onto Main Street. How would you address that?
They have already done, meeting with VHB and our architects, they've done the swing patterns to make sure that that can be done, and we would have control over those lights.
But I mean, if you come out of Central Street, you try to take a right with a fire truck, I think they think that might be a little difficult, no?
Well, the swing pattern is there, and taking control of the lights, we can even move so far as to take control of the light at Central and Main Street to move traffic if there was a backup there.
And then on Hamilton Street, their concern is it's a very congested street. There's cars parked on both sides, and also the turn there, but how would you address that? The congested Hamilton Street.
Again, we operate through those areas right now without issue, and we would just have to take it in stride.
Now, the design shows that you're planning on taking all those stores on Central Street.
Correct.
On one side there. And some of the concern has been that you would be losing some businesses right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you address that, taking those businesses?
So, we've already talked to and met with economic development, redevelopment. I've had some conversations with the previous chair of redevelopment as to what can we look at. That is a targeted area, economic area, urban redevelopment area. So I think we would work with our economic team to say, is there new buildings that maybe are coming forward? We know there might be new construction on Main Street with some of those buildings. What are some of the reuses where we could assist or help those businesses to relocate, and at the same time cleaning up that area and making it an open type market area where additional parking. So we are working on that. We don't have a clear-cut answer for those businesses, but that is something that we are working on.
Now, when I served on the redevelopment authority, I believe those businesses were going to be taken by that La Rochelle Way redesign, if my memory serves me right. I believe that was on the redevelopment map, that once they did the Hook Street redesign, they were going to take those businesses anyway, right? No?
No, I won't answer for the redevelopment authority. I mean, we can certainly get an answer for that. I know that one time there was a talk about putting a parking garage in that area and some redesign of that. And when I talked to the planning department on that, the cost is so exorbitant that the town would never be able to afford that parking garage. I might be incorrect, but I think that was the conversation that we had. But we will definitely work with the economic team on that. I mean, it is an area, when you look at the conversations that we had from residents in town, the council, was they wanted it in that Main Street central location. So again, we've had a lot of people that comment, hey, just tear down the two bays at the end, throw up some garage, but okay, you could do that, but we all know that when we open up construction, we now have to bring the existing building up to code, repurpose. We cannot change any of the doorways in the existing fire station outside of those two bays that you could take off. So how do you repurpose that and be fiscally responsible and make it work for the next 120 years? we have a fire station 120 years old. And I think my colleague, Councilor Lazo, served on the school building project with me. And anything that we did, it was looking to the future. And that's how we have to approach this is, if we do nothing, that's not an answer because the costs just get more expensive as I articulated in the previous meeting. Does it make sense? And that's something the council will have to debate. Does it make sense to potentially spend an additional $2 million to $3 million to renovate and add on to an existing 120-year-old building? We know the cost of this building, and we could have a best guess of what the impact to the tax rate will be, which will be pretty high. And all we have to do is look at our friends over in Charlton who are trying to struggle putting together a public safety building, police and fire, which got voted down pretty significantly. And their square footage is probably a little bit higher than us. Their price tag was higher than us. So that's why we've taken our time to come up with a sensible, responsible solution.
Well, the point I was trying to make with the taking of the buildings on Central Street is that I think that was part, I'm pretty sure that was part of the Hook Street redesign, so I'm not sure that that would be an added cost because I think it was already in the works to take those businesses. I'm almost positive. I'm almost positive. I looked at the map just the other day.
Well, we'll definitely
Okay,
research
she's shaking her head no, but I thought I was right. But that's all right. It was just some questions that I had, and thank you for answering them. I would like to add that we've all received that email from former town manager Coughlin about the 9/11 memorial, and maybe it's just an idea. Maybe we could just, if we ever get a fire station, maybe we could name it the 9/11 Memorial Fire Station, and that would be good for a memorial for 9/11. So thank you.
Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First of all, I want to thank the whole committee for your diligence on actually taking a look at it. I know there was a lot of pushback on Marsh Ave, and so I appreciate you guys taking a look at this and trying to conform it to what the public was looking for, along with the town councilors, or some of the town councilors. A quick question. I know you guys have been working with lawmakers and all that kind of stuff here recently. Where are we at with that? Because, $25, $26 million, $28 million is quite a bit of money for this town to fork over. And as you said, the tax rate will go a little bit higher here. What's the progress on that?
So I'll let the chiefs update you on that as well, because I want to commend these two gentlemen right here because they are working, I think, day and night, going in and knocking on doors to try to get some legislative help on this. And I thank Councilor Marquetti, too, because I know he's trying to reach out to Congressman Neal's office because we really haven't had great success with that, and I know he has possibly a conduit to that. And I think this will be, once we turn this over to the council, something that if the council feels strongly that a new station is in, well, I would hope that they know that a station is needed, that the council will also take the charge and the mantle to work with the legislative leaders to push for this as well. But I'll let the chiefs talk about some of the updates as to some possible avenues that we've explored. Chief?
So we worked extensively with Congressman Neal's Springfield office, and he came back to us essentially with USDA loan programs, which we have already identified that the town has a better bond rating than what the USDA would offer us in the first place. There are no federal earmarks for any projects like this. There is nothing under the AFG Assistance to Firefighter grants or any of the other grants that go along with this. And then at the state level, we've made presentations through Senator Fatman's office and Representative Durant, and no one has been able to identify any funding sources whatsoever for us. There has been discussions about establishing some type of public safety funding mechanism, but it's nothing that's been moved forward at this point.
So, and to follow up on that, I think that's where the council may need to get involved, is to press the legislative, because what they were talking about, Senator No, the other senator that came down. Senator Moore came down and visited us as well and toured the station. I apologize for forgetting his name, because I always think of the other Senator Moore that we had. I wish was still there, because Chairman of Ways and Means, we maybe had some help, because he was very good to us. There is a concept up there in some bills that they're trying to put through as to similar to the school building assistance program. And if anybody knows, the town of Southbridge was very fortunate during that process that we received 80% state funding based on our demographics, based on our need. So if you look at something to that extent, that would definitely benefit the town of Southbridge. So those bills are starting to push forward. That would really be through the treasurer's office, not as opposed to the legislators. Because what the senator did tell us is, look, everybody talks to the governor, all the legislators talk to the governor, talk to the lieutenant governor or the treasurer, but when they hear from the actual citizens on the street, we're kicking the can, they want to hear from us. So that's why I think we need to take up the mantle and push this forward. And the other case would be, where would they, as we know, the school building assistance is a targeted percentage of I forget, Councilor Lauzon may know of where they take the money for the school building assistance. We do know that the police departments in the Commonwealth, well, we do know the fire department has training, and that is done through property insurance. The police agencies had requested training, and they've gotten some of that through rental of cars. So what would be the funding mechanism? And that would be where the treasurer's office would have to try to find, well, how are we going to fund this? Where would we get the money? So we look at online gambling, sports betting. Perhaps that's it, but it's going to take us on the streets to really push it. And we do know that we do have the recreational marijuana is that avenue as well. So, but it's all a good case, because we do know, and I would be foolish to think that we as taxpayers in the town of Southbridge would be able to fund $25 million on the backs of the taxpayer. That's not going to happen unless we fight and work to get state and federal aid. And the chief mentioned the assistance to fire grants. Those last were in 2009. Perhaps that's something we can get to the feds. They did have a program for buildings. And the nice thing is, where we are in this process, that we've done our study, we have conceptual design, any funding mechanism that would take place, we're at the higher end of the list, because we're down the road of the process. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Are you all set? Councilor Adams,
Yes,
you all set? Councilor Lazo.
Couple of things, expanding the construction portion. As we do any building committee that works, I want to thank you for the work you've done. I know how much time goes into that from the beginning to the end. But what you're looking at is construction and finance. And on the first portion, construction, that was my strong point on the building committee. When I look at something, I don't see it the same way everybody else does, because I see it through a contractor's eyes. When you said, we're going to take the bays down and we're going to expand it, and everything you said was fantastic. But when you turned around and said, we're going to put a concrete retaining wall behind there to hold up, the first thing that entered my mind, I would have sat down, and maybe it's a question to be asked. If you're going to put that type of concrete wall on the backside of a station, which is the highest cost of concrete, is retaining walls with all the steel and all the specs, why wouldn't you have a walkout, state-of-the-art, walkout basement to the municipal parking lot, and take all that concrete that you're going to spend on that wall and put it into your structural floors to hold all the big trucks? That would be a construction question, which I would love. I'm coming in late on this. I got elected. I haven't seen documents. I'm not trying to tear up anybody's work. Trust me. I know where you are right now. I was there on the school building. I'm looking at your options. When you say Central Street parking lot, viable option. The existing construction and redevelopment of the old building, I think that's still a viable option. Those are the only two options that I see from my viewpoint as a contractor from the building field. Now, when you talk about finance, when we did the school, it was competitive. We had a very aggressive building committee, and I know we have a very aggressive building committee now. And as I tell the residents, and as they tell me what they want here, from the outside, and they're not in the boardroom, and they're not putting in to the specs in the work that you are, do nothing's not an option. We can haggle over which site, how many bays, but one of the discussions that comes up that the citizens ask, what determines the size of your building is the need and the equipment and the manpower that has to be serviced in the building and stored in the building and trained in the building. So I see a lot of great things in this building, either option, that is not in this building at all. No, I don't think it was in anybody's mind until this project. When you go and upgrade something, much like our middle high school, despite what's going on at the high school, the building, the facility was a Class A construction project, on time, under budget, and that's the way it flowed. And that takes a good building committee, along with, you have a fantastic Castle and Booze, it's a fantastic outfit. The thing that surprised me on the financial end is that Congressman Neal, who is on the Ways and Means Committee, surprisingly, as first responders, nothing under Homeland Security could be taken and used for a fire station. It kind of baffled me. So I think there are things to work on. But again, I think Councilor Jovan, after the go-around we did with the school, and we got competitive and we became #1 in the state for a construction project, they only wanted to give us the high school. And we walked out of the state room saying, you want to put a Band-Aid, you're going to come back to you for a middle school and be here, knowing you had a fire station to do. We knew that then. We put down the gauntlet, said all or nothing. We ended up with the middle high school. We got it all. 80% funding, sell a couple of buildings to offset our percentages after the 87%. And it was successful. This is what this project needs. Do nothing's not an object, not an option. And the objective is to get the public involved. Now, how fast do you need this building and when do you need it? One of the options that I always think is fair is allow the public to vote on the option. You as a building committee and we as a council, if there are two, it's their money. Give them an option on, and let the building committee and the council market the one we think is right. And let the public decide, and if they want to raise their taxes, we can find creative ways. I know you are at the State House a lot, trying to get money for this town. I commend you, but it's going to be a tough nugget to swallow, but I still stand as a councilor, as an official and a citizen. Do nothing's not an option. I know what's going on with structures at the building and the sizes of the doors and what can be adapted and what can't be. So for me, again, do nothing's not an option, but you have a tough road ahead because we need to get together and sell this to the public. Not only a construction portion, but a financial portion. And I think that's incumbent on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to thank the council for their time and the two chiefs for being here, as well as Captain Matthew and the other members of my committee, former Council Chair Dave Langevin, and again, former Councilor Kathleen Nicola, and John Shugda. And we do have a representative from the building department. Unfortunately, he resigned his position, so we'll be looking at making some changes to the building committee coming forward. I'd like to thank you for your time. I look forward to the debate next town council meeting.
Yep, I just wanted to say thank you for your time and also point out again that the website that has information about the project is southbridgenewfirestationproject.org. The chief and I are happy to answer any questions from the public. We do get them from time to time and answer them as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on. Citizens, I'll give the chief a minute to get his stuff. No, the copy's for you. Thank you, Chief.
Citizens Forum, is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the town council? If so, please come forward. State your name and your address, and it's on any item that is not on the agenda this evening. Good evening, Maureen.
Hi, I'm Maureen Doyle, 771 Lebanon Hill. I don't usually go over my time limit, but I just might tonight. So, but I'm going
I
to
don't know
try
about
to
that,
stick to my
Maureen.
script, but I'm just warning you guys. So happy autumn equinox. Feels like it, huh?
You might have to speak up, Maureen, because it's very
Oh,
difficult to
okay.
hear you.
Happy autumn equinox. Really feels like it, huh? Regarding the aerial pesticide spraying that occurred on September 16th, last Monday, I have a number of questions and concerns for my elected officials. So I'm starting at the local level and then moving on to the state level. I understand that the state ordered aerial spraying and that there was no opting out. The state is concerned that 4 people came down with this triple E. So the quote-unquote solution is to spray a neurotoxin indiscriminately. But what other plant or animal species could be affected? What other ecosystems? How does it affect wetlands and water-based ecosystems, especially since Anvil 1010, the pesticide used, is not soluble in water? What if the inhabitants of the water ingest the pesticides and are then subsequently fished or eaten? Does it bioaccumulate in their bodies? I don't know. The state supposedly didn't spray sensitive areas like our reservoir. That's good. But what about all the sensitive areas like smaller vernal pools or ponds in the woods? What about wetlands and gardens? Shouldn't those areas count as sensitive areas? I know enough about pesticides to know that they can drift too, especially when applied from an airplane, even a low-flying one. Spraying pesticides and neurotoxins in the hopes of killing one species that we don't like seems anthropocentric to me. Humans are one part of the web of life. With climate change, warmer temperatures and more moisture will bring more mosquitoes. Will the human response be to spray more pesticides more often? What will happen to our groundwater, our crops? Will the insects adapt to the chosen pesticide, and we will need to use a stronger one? That's what has happened in a very short time to some of the agriculture pesticides. Philosophically, is it fair to kill something that is more prolific due to humans creating the conditions that it prefers to be prolific? If one species is deemed useless and worthy of extermination, do we as humans, when do we as humans stop being the executioners? This summer, harbor seals were deemed to be a pest on Cape Cod and were exterminated. Why is it so easy for humans to decide to kill another in the web of life, a mosquito or a harbor seal, for example, but have no problem allowing businesses to kill with pollution or toxins? Don't pollution and chemical waste poison and sicken far more organisms? But yet we do nothing to stop that. In 1979, Norman Myers wrote a book and talked about Spaceship Earth losing rivets with each species we kill. The spaceship could fly with a few missing rivets, but soon the Spaceship Earth could no longer fly because it lost so many rivets, just as an example. So let's fortify Spaceship Earth by increasing its health, not by polluting more and killing off its species one at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Any further citizens that wish to address the council? Any further citizens? Seeing none, moving on. Item 9, vote to confirm the appointment of Derek Julian to serve on the Protection of Persons and Property Subcommittee effective immediately through July 31st, 2020, or until a new member is approved.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Recommendation of PPP?
Yes.
Full recommendation.
Full recommendation. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 10, vote to confirm the appointment of Zachary Laverne to the Plan and Development Subcommittee effective immediately through July 31st, 2020, or until a new member is appointed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Recommendation, Council Adams?
We had that on, I believe, on the 16th of September. It was a 3-to-1 vote, and at this point in time, I'm going to highly recommend Zach for this subcommittee.
Council McKay?
I was the person who voted no against Mr. Laverne, and I have nothing personal against Mr. Laverne, but the way I look at it, he's serving on the Agricultural Commission, and he is right now writing a right to farm bylaw. And the problem that I have with it is that eventually, I think portions of this right to farm bylaw will be coming to the Planning and Development Subcommittee to be voted on. And I see it as a potential conflict of interest because Mr. Laverne owns and operates a commercial farm in town. Now, if Mr. Casella moved to Southbridge and wanted to serve on a committee that was voting on the landfill, excuse me, I think there'd be a few councilors up here that would have a problem with that. And let's say Mr. Patton of Green Meadows, he moved to Southbridge and he wanted to vote on a bylaw that dealt with the marijuana. He wanted to vote on a committee that dealt with the marijuana bylaw. I think some other councilors might have a problem with that. Now, just a couple of years ago, the town manager was going to appoint somebody to the Board of Health. And he wouldn't even consider anyone on the Board of Health who even had an opinion on the landfill. Now, that's not even a conflict of interest. That's just an opinion, being biased for or against the landfill. He would not allow it, and the town council at the time went along with that. So I see Mr. Laverne as a potential conflict of interest. I have nothing personal against the guy. I just think that seeing that he owns a commercial farm, that would be a conflict of interest. Now, I recognize that he is a resident of Southbridge and he has the same rights as anyone else to serve on a committee. And if he wanted to serve on PPP or EHS or DPW, I would gladly vote for him for one of those committees. But to be on the Planning and Development Subcommittee, that I have a problem with, and that's why I voted no. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you for your comments. I think, while I respect your opinions, there are always potential conflicts of interest for any elected official or anybody that takes up a position in town. That would be up to that individual member to make sure that they avoid any potential conflict of interest, just like we would have to avoid any potential conflict of interest. If I had I'm serving on a school committee, we were voting on a bus contract. My spouse, wife at the time, worked for the bus company. I recused myself, exited the room, left the room. Those things do happen. So it would be up to that individual member to make sure that there is no potential violation of ethics. So I respect the fact that he wants to serve, and he would have to do his best to avoid any potential conflict of interest. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Marchetti. I think Mr. Laverne, I wasn't at that meeting. I believe that Mr. Laverne will bring another opinion, and the subcommittee is not a binding vote. So nothing is binding a subcommittee. It's vetted as subcommittee. And until you have all the facts on why people don't get appointed, and maybe some opinions just should be kept to yourself, because I respectfully and ultimately totally disagree with you with regards to an appointment a few years back with somebody for the Board of Health. There's reasons, and they're not even, they have to go through a whole interview process with the town manager. So that's a whole nother board. So until you have all the facts straight, you shouldn't be making accusations. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So, Councilor, just to clarify, Councilor Marchetti asked an appropriate question the other night at the subcommittee, and I believe Mr. Laverne answered that question, stating he would abstain from any type of voting, or down the road to educate him, recusal, remove himself from that room. So I do agree with Councilor Marquette's question, because it is something that's very important, and it is a hot topic. Again, he is a citizen, and I agree, he's a citizen of this town. He stepped up to the plate. He is the chair of the Agricultural Commission. He owns a little business here in town at the farmer's market, so he does have an agenda in a sense to make sure this goes through the best he can, but it's up to us here at the town council to make that final decision for anybody, because we do represent that portion. So again, I will be highly recommending Mr. Laverne for this position. Thank you very much.
Councilor Lazo?
Just one quick question. I really don't know who the gentleman is. I know him if I saw him, but I don't know him. Question, is he part of writing the Farm Bill?
He is.
That's what was told to me. He was involved in writing the Farm Bill. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Oh, Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. He is part of that, the farm bylaw. However, that all goes through subcommittee, up to us at the end, the planning board and everything. We are part of bylaws, and, you know, I mean, I understand what Mr. Marquette's saying, but I respectfully disagree with him, and I think that's all.
Yeah. On that whole
I don't
issue
think
of the
I'm
right
wrong.
to farm bylaw, I mean, we spent a lot of time through general government on that bylaw, which ultimately did get sent up here to council. That was referred back to zoning because a lot of that was in conflict with zoning. So the zoning board has that topic now. We'll be handling that and doing any public hearing that they have to have before it even comes before council for. So I don't even think that potentially that, well, it could go back to planning and development through the zoning. But that would be on the recommendation of the zoning board too. So the zoning board would have an awful lot of input as to what that bylaw would look like. So, Councilor Lazo, and then Councilor.
No, I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed. Motion carries. Vote to transfer $50,000 from town heating fuel number 0190000.521200 to natural gas number 0190000.521100 due to the conversion of town hall from oil to gas heating.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Marquetti?
Does this mean that the oil tank has been removed?
No,
It hasn't been removed.
not as of yet. I believe it's in the planning stages because there's a lot of work that has to go to engineer and redo the back stairs, am I correct? Through DPW. It just means that we converted that system, so that's why we're allocating the money to it.
Thank you.
Councilor Steves?
Yeah, through you to the manager. Do you have a quick estimate of what our costs have been for oil and gas and where they're going?
So the expectation, and I don't have the quick estimate for you, but the expectation obviously is when you go to gas, that you're going to reduce your cost overall throughout the year. That's the whole purpose of this. That's why we received the Green Communities Grant to do this. But as of now, we don't have those numbers. We need to have some experience with it first to be able to get an idea as to what those numbers might be. But it is expected to be a savings.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 12, vote to authorize the town manager to accept a deed in lieu of tax foreclosure for property described as Servants Way, Assessors Map 076, Block 024, Lot 00001. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Steves?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this earlier when you were talking about Gen Gov. I forgot about this one. This was on our last Gen Gov agenda. Because it's because of the land transfer as opposed to being because it's the deed in lieu of tax foreclosure as opposed to being a more traditional land transfer, which would have gone to P&D. This is a project where, for the public's interest, this is a project where we had originally voted on accepting Servant Way as a town road, but the process had never been completed from the formal behind the scenes stuff. So it came back to us, and then from there it just kind of never went anywhere. And with this issue, it came up more recently because of the fact that we found that there was taxes due on the property because the person who's on record as owning it had no reason to think that he owned the property. He thought we did. So he just junked the tax bills. And that made sense since it was our fault that it wasn't recorded properly anyway. So that's essentially why why GenGov agreed to, thought that was a good idea to do this. And if I remember correctly, we voted unanimously to accept it.
Correct. Any further discussion?
So,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just, and I apologize, I wasn't there for that meeting that night. So basically, this was supposed to be done, do we know how long ago this was? And he never received any tax information saying you owe us or anything like that? A nice pink letter or anything?
As I
I'm
recall, it was
trying
at
to-
least 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It was a long time ago.
And I think when the tax collector came and the DPW director came, when we discussed what the cost would be to do the foreclosure process, that would be much more costly to do that than just say, I think the taxes owed were $1,000, I believe. Is that correct, Melissa?
I don't know the exact number, it's just over 1,000 right now.
Yeah, it was just over $1,000. So,
Thank you.
you all set? All right. We're going to take a roll call on this.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Unanimous, all present. Item 13, vote to ratify the amendment to our health service agreement dated September 3rd, 2019 with Harrington Occupational Health Services, Concord Care of Southbridge with new rates effective October 1st, 2009.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Lazo.
At subcommittee, it was voted unanimously in favor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 14, vote to ratify the extension agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Viola North America Northeast LLC for a 1-month period from October 31st, 2019 for the operation, maintenance, and management of the wastewater treatment plant.
So move.
Second.
Councilor Nash?
Unfortunately, it wasn't
You were
at
not
that
there,
meeting,
right?
sir. But
Okay, so I think I chaired that meeting for you and took minutes. This was a discussion, we already have an extension with them. The town is working through the agreement for the management of the wastewater treatment, and they're going through the process, so we just need a little additional time. I think the town managers did state at that meeting that it's anticipated that they may have that resolved before this extension is needed, but this was just best case scenario to get us through. And it was unanimous of all present. Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Marquetti.
Well, I was at the meeting, and it was a little bit lengthier explanation than that. The town manager wants to explain what happened.
I think, yeah, for the record, it was, I'll let the town manager explain, but the DPW is working on the extension agreement for the wastewater treatment plant. We had already voted an extension to this agreement once before. Town had gone out to bid, and I'll let the town manager finish up on that.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few brief comments to add to your thing. The issue that was brought up at subcommittee was the fact that we had given an RFP with a proposed contract in it. Veolia, the company that we're looking to contract with, made changes to the RFP process, which we can't do. They were trying to be helpful. They were trying to reorganize it in a way that made sense logically. But when you put an RFP, request for proposal, out in the market, you can't make changes to it because other developers will say, hey, you changed the work after we already bid on it. So Veolia has been in the process of putting it back to the way it was. They actually sent that to me today. I reviewed it today. Heather has looked at it today along with Matt, and we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, right after my department head meeting, to review the changes.
Thank you.
Any further? Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So, Mr. Town Manager, if you will.
Sure.
So, is there a potential problem based on the response to the RFP? There were only 2 responsive bidders.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, the answer is no. There's no problem. The bid is still the same. They really didn't change it. There's a few issues we need to address in terms of liabilities within the contract that we're going to be working with Steve Meadows, our law firm, with. So me, Heather, and Matt are going to review it tomorrow. But we do know there's a couple of issues we want to review with our attorney in terms of certain liabilities. The RFP process was simply an attempt by them to do something that we're just putting back the way it was. So we don't see at this point any problem with having this contract go forward, but we want to make sure, because you know it's a 5-year contract with 3 5-year extensions, that it's perfect, because we're going to have this for a long time. So I would expect that we could be done very quickly. It could be a couple of days, but we want to make sure it's done right, and we want the extension in place. We don't want to be forced from time issues to do something quickly when we want to make sure we do it right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes?
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous vote, President. Item 15, vote to declare as surplus one full pallet of slate and approve the full pallet be declared surplus and/or scrapped. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Councilman, do you have anything to add on this?
No, we just rediscussed this at subcommittee, and it was voted unanimously.
Thank you.
So.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to declare as surplus cast iron radiators from the old heating system removed from internal spaces within the fire station and approve these radiators be declared surplus and/or scrapped.
So
Motion?
moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Again,
All
the same thing.
Same thing? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to approve playground equipment under option 1, proposal from M.E. O'Brien and Sons Incorporated for $30,250 for play structure and approximately $3,400 in independent items to meet ADA requirements for the Henry Street Field, and any remaining funds to be utilized for additional recreational equipment at Henry Street Field. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Manager?
Oh, no.
You want to,
No.
this went through,
Oh, it didn't go through me. I was just
which
going to ask
subcommittee
some
did that come
questions.
through? Is that yours? Counselor Lazo, there you go.
Yeah, this went through it.
Which one it went through? Counselor Lazo.
There was much discussion. To credit the town manager with the presentation of giving you many options to understand what goes on at Henry Street Field, some of the good things that have already been done, some of the good things that we have to get done. This is one of those things we have to get done. There's some safety issues with some old equipment and tables and stuff, and I think this vote here will straighten out a lot of the problems and help a lot of the youth in Southbridge down at Henry Street Field. The vote was unanimous, well, President.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I guess my question is, at the end of this, any remaining funds to be utilized for additional recreational equipment at Henry Street Field? That, to me, I mean, I think it should be, I don't think it just, we need to know how much is left over and what it's going to be spent on. It just can't be for anything. You see what I'm saying? Maybe I'm just reading into it wrong.
I'll let Council Lazo, then the town manager, the capital line item was 40,000, so it's 40,000 is the max for that, just so you know, but Council Lazo?
Right, there's a ceiling cost on what's going to be spent at Henry Street Field. The $6,000 by earmarking for that area, there's an old slide that doesn't meet the code, the railings, the edges of the metal are sharp. There's also some tables and recreational furniture that's there that has to go, that should be replaced. So I think the subcommittee really got the message from the planners of this project that instead of letting the $6,000 go somewhere else, finish the project, do it properly, and then after the rest of the recreation would be complemented by it.
Councilman?
So, thank you, Councilor Lazo, for that explanation. So that then the remaining amount, once we're ready to go forward with that, it'll be brought back to council, so we'll see what it's being, no?
I
It's
think
just gonna be-
the intent of that meeting was that it
Just
would
to-
allow the department head, the recreational director, and his immediate authority to discuss that with the town manager and what they needed to replace. We were pretty clear on what a target area they would do, and it would be specific to that location.
Right, but I think it should still come to council so we can see it. I mean, if it's, okay, so I mean, let's leave the past in the past, but I mean, we don't want to just like say, oh, okay, oh, sure, it's being spent on that. The council should be able to see what it's being spent on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's all. Thank you.
Did you have anything?
Yeah,
And then I'll go to Councilor
not
Lazo.
specifically to Councilor Manor's comment, but to the question I commented at the subcommittee meeting, that this would probably get done in spring. Me and Heather are discussing that, depending upon the timing of getting equipment. It is possible we might be doing this work in the fall. I don't want to promise that, but I did want you to know that because I suggested I'd be using a group of you volunteers to help with that. So it may very well be that you'll be contacted earlier, depending upon if Heather has the ability to take down the old plastic playground area. I talked to Bay Path, which I hadn't time to tell Heather yet. Bay Path is interested in framing out the area like we did for the, some of the other areas there. So Bay Path has agreed to be willing to do that work for us. So we need to talk to John, the project manager over there, to do that. But there, I'd say there's a reasonable possibility we might be doing that this fall.
Councilor Lazo?
I don't want to beat a dead horse. I do understand what my fellow colleagues saying about coming back to council, but I think the explanation that the manager gave us at the subcommittee, we know that it's going to go into these things, and whether it's a square table or a round table, or whether it's, you know, if we really want to see the stuff, it wasn't our intent to bring it back to council, because I think it was pretty black and white on what he was going to do with it.
Thank you. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. And I apologize for asking this question. I've just caught something, and perhaps before I offer amendment, mistakenly, is there a reason that our motion tonight is the additional $3,400 when option one actually calls for $3,135? If you look at the backup material, the email option one price, $30,250 for play structure and approximately $3,135 in independent items, and yet on our agenda and what we've moved tonight is the additional was $3,400.
Should be 3,135. Not sure how that got changed. I thought that we actually voted on 3,135 at the council, so it may just be a typo. The subcommittee, I think we voted on the 3,135 in the subcommittee, didn't we?
Yes, you are correct. It was according to this document. So if you want to entertain that,
Okay. I would move to amend to replace $3,400 with the amount of $3,135 for the proposal. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like they just took down from that below item and kind of transferred.
I second that amendment.
Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Thank you for catching that, Councilor Nash.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Council Manna?
Thank you. And I don't want to beat this to death either, and I'm just going to have this as my last say. We've been talking about, you know, all the money's got to come to council. We got to see what it's being spent on. This is an oversight. And I'm sorry, when I see emails going back and forth about, you know, citizens getting actual bids for stuff to be done down at Henry Street Field, it kind of doesn't settle well with me when I see that we're going to let $6,000 go into, because the manager says it's going to go into that. Now, I'm not saying the manager isn't being honest and truthful with us. However, we as a council should be seeing where that $6,000 is going.
So, to your point about emails, this was clearly sent to southvetsserve@chatter.net, which is the Southbridge Veterans Service agent, who is managing this project, Mike Trombley. So this is not being done by a private citizen. This is being done by the municipal official that's directly in charge of that area right now, and the new recreational director who met with us and went through this proposal. I think at some point, I do respect the fact that of oversight, but at some point, you also, if a department head brings together a proposal, and it's a sound proposal, which this was, you have to give them some latitude to work within that framework that you give them, and then it's up to us, if it's not completed appropriately, to hold those people accountable. They gave a very good presentation at that meeting. The new recreational director was on top of it with some of the thought process, and while I respect your opinion, I respectfully also, we have to allow department heads to do their jobs with what we tell them to do. We sat at Capitol meeting when this originally came, and it was a blanket $40,000 for Henry Street. We said, we will not approve this project unless we have a plan that comes forward to us. The department head did that, brought the plan forward, details, and said, hey, there's a couple other things that we have to fix down there. We're not sure of the cost. Give us some latitude to fix that so that the project could get done. And at that point, if something goes wrong, that's when you hold those officials accountable through the town manager's office. Councilor Lazo?
It's a tough, I understand what my fellow colleagues saying about the accountability and oversight. I can't say more about the department head on this one, especially the rec director, the new rec director, the young fellow that came in, seems to take ownership and steps up with the manager, with Mike Trombley. And when it was done, because, and I inherited this happened before I got on council, but what was impressive about it was they identified that there's more of a problem here than just putting up this playground. And they wanted to take care of the problem and not have to come back while they're doing it. And I was one of the guys that, you know, if there's concrete work, I can, you know, there's a job super on the job that's put forth by the company. And I did this before on West Street. I got the call from the PTA to do some concrete work, and I donated my time. If I don't, then that's fine too. That was a discussion of maybe getting more for the money that's being put into the project. So if you're putting 40 and you're getting 44, it seemed like a good idea to do it. And the thing was, they wanted to get aggressive on it. They were talking springtime, now we're talking fall. That's the way to tackle it, because if you tackle it in the fall, you open up in the spring, and it's all green lights. And I did go down and see the slide, and I did go down and see the table. Just a little bit of oversight as a counselor. Let's get hands-on. You were so right about the slide and so right about the table that I'm glad we voted the way we voted. Thank you.
Councilor Steves.
I just want to say that I understand what Councilor Mann was saying as well, with some of the issues we've seen in recent years. But I think I'd personally be satisfied with just seeing kind of an as-built, either, I don't know if it would be a plan or at least a memo indicating what was actually finally put up there. And it would be great to see, once it's all done, just, you know, do what you did with the basketball courts, essentially.
Yep. Okay. Councilor Bennett, did you have something?
I was basically going to say what Councilor,
Just
thank you,
a quick
Councilor.
minute, if the town manager, as the project's going, it's in your hands. As it unfolds and as it happens, it wouldn't be a bad idea on behalf of Councilor Mann to inform us how it's going, where it's going, and what time it's going, so we can probably stop down and just take a look at it.
I promise you'll see it up real close.
Thank you.
Bring severals.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 18, vote to authorize the town manager to approve an easement through the Central Street parking lot under the pedestrian plaza at book 4378, page 26, for the purposes of putting in underground communications shown on Exhibit A as charter easement area. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Council? Did I do something wrong?
No, you didn't do anything wrong. All right, we're good.
You got the laugh
We're
going
doing
on.
sign language over here between myself and the town
Councilor
manager. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we had this agenda item this evening at the P&D. It was voted 3-0 in favor of. I know this goes back a few weeks with Mr. Clements, Mr. McCarthy, DPW, some of our engineers, you name it, we discussed with them. And this is basically a conduit that's going to go from Central Street. There's a telephone pole, and I believe it's number 2, that it would go underground into the new vicinity of 111 Central, all the way over. If you look at the map or the kind of blueprints I gave you, underground, you see the V for the vault. It'll go to Mr. McCarthy's building over at 111, over to where they're working on the bricks, the building now that was not burned down, and also in the Stiles building, into the building that is not there right now, that is being hopefully built here next year, and into the next building over. And it's all underground conduit, about 3 feet under. It is not a change order. It is not a change order to the Central Street parking project. It is, I believe, the owners will be working with the current contractor that is laying the cement, Nunez Company. They'll be paying them. Charter is asking for this easement. They'll put this thing in, and that way they can get rid of the wires that are above ground, put it underground. And again, no cost to the town. We've been guaranteed the best we can that there is no change order to the Central Street parking lot project. And I highly recommend this. Answer any questions if I can.
And just for the record, when you reflect 111 Central Street, it's actually 1-211 Central Street, not 111.
Okay, thank you.
I just want for the record
Got
that
it.
somebody's out there looking at where's 111 Central Street. It's not. It's 1-11 Central Street. Okay.
It's 1 dash, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, yeah, dash.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said 111.
You're right, it's 1 dash. You're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, not to 1 to 11. Got it.
Yeah, it's not 111, it's 1-11. So, any further discussion? Thank you for taking that under your guidance tonight to get that to us for the property owners there to
that are going to improve that area.
Just a
Councilor
quick minute. I mean, I know all the councilors do their work at their subcommittees and stuff. I just want to point out that Mr. Adams he's everywhere all the time. He's 110%, 100 miles an hour. Mr. Adams, I commend you for the work that you do for Southbridge. I got to tell you, it's beyond council work. It's a really town pride thing to have you aboard. Got to tell you that. Thanks.
Thanks, Counselor. My wife is probably watching right now going, oh, my Lord. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Unanimous for all present. Council's forum. Let's see. I'll start with Counselor Nash tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you,
I caught you off guard, didn't you? You were waiting. I caught you off guard.
nothing to report tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick things. First off, I know you got one, and some of the other town officials have gotten this letter from FEMA. It's kind of a technical thing, but I just thought I'd mention it for people who might be interested. As you might know, there's been very little bit of talk about it, that they're changing our flood risk maps in town, mostly around the Quinnebog River area. And the FEMA is doing a kind of formal hazard analysis and draft flood hazard mapping meeting this coming Thursday, the 26th. It's at 10 a.m. up here in the council chambers. This is kind of a technical thing from what I understand from what this map is saying, from this letter is saying. So it's not necessarily a public forum per se, but if you're curious enough to see where things stand, I mean, it is open. It'll be in here. So if you're curious enough to see where things stand, you can come drop in and see what's happening. Also, I wanted to mention, since we're in the middle of talking about things in the middle of changes, the Conservation Commission has started a public hearing regarding creating new town bylaws covering wetlands. They were at their public hearing, started it on Thursday the 19th, downstairs, nobody came, but they continued it to Thursday the 3rd at 6:30, where they will continue a discussion of that. If you have any issues, the bylaws, there is, I'm not sure if it's the most recent version, but there is a bylaw, the version of the bylaw is on the town website. And if anybody has a question, you can email me and I can send it to you as well. And it's fairly comprehensive about dealing with, if you've ever gone through conservation, you know that they currently deal with the state's wetlands bylaws, or the wetlands laws. And this will be kind of expanding it and putting some changes into it to localize it. So that's going on 6:30 on Thursday the 3rd. And let's see, there was one other thing I think. No, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I would just like to compliment Councilor Lazo's shirt. Very good. Thank you very much, and that's it.
I don't know what it says, but.
WSU.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things. Just a reminder, I know you mentioned it, bylaw, public hearing.
Might have to do the mic down there,
Sorry
Councilor,
about
please.
that. There you go. Bylaw, public hearings going Wednesday for marijuana and the signs. Autumn Fest was a great success. Southbridge Business Partnership did a great job, and I think it was actually bigger this year than it was last year. It's beautiful weather out there too as well. CDBG public meeting is going Thursday for fiscal year 20 grant funds. So if you have any ideas or want to get educated on it, please attend that. It'll be down in the GAR room. I wanted to send out a belated happy birthday to the Air Force. They are 72 years old as of 18 September, and the Navy will be turning 244 years old on 13 October. So happy birthday to all of them. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti?
Okay, thank you. Again, the empty lot on Maria Avenue, 7-day notice. I haven't heard anything about it. Looks the same to me as it was. It's been all summer long. I am looking for some resolution on that. There's still significant erosion down into the sidewalk when you're trying to walk. There's a large piece of equipment there, some kind of an excavation machinery, sitting right on the sidewalk, almost on the sidewalk.
It's kind of hard to hear you. Speak, you guys step back.
There's
just a
some
little.
sort of a excavation.
Councilor Marquetti, step back from the mic just a little bit.
All
There
right,
you go.
sorry.
Yeah.
some kind of an excavation equipment right next to the sidewalk. When you're trying to walk by, you could just about brush into it with your shoulder. So I would like that cleaned up before, you know, sooner rather than later. It's been this way almost a year now. So it's on the corner of Maria Avenue. I saw that the clothing bin on Elm Street was cleaned up today, so I thank you for that. Hopefully it'll stay that way. I did get another call about the International Club over the weekend. There was a lot of noise. I don't know if they called the police department, but I think the concern is when they call the police department that when they get told that it's just that they have a permit, then they kind of like don't really want to call the police department anymore. So I will continue to talk to them about it, the residents.
In regards to that, an international club,
Right.
as it is with all complaints, I urge any citizen to contact the police department.
Right.
Regardless if they can't do anything, the more calls that they can log in for those events gives boards and commissions the ability to document, and if it does go for further action. If they don't call thinking that nothing's going to be done, then there is no documentation. So when they go for a
Right.
hearing, there's
Okay.
nothing on file. So I
That's
urge
a good
citizens
point.
to do that.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Town Manager?
If I could, just a comment, Counselor. I did have an extensive conversation with the police chief regarding the International Club. I know I've been watching the emails being responded from the police chief with you as well. We've had a discussion over the noise ordinance, and I will say this to you, any complaints will be more rigorously addressed than in the past. So he's going to see how it goes. There's been conversation with the owner, and we'll see how the next series of events go.
Okay. The scaffold on Crane Street, still standing, still does not look safe to me. It seems like a jerry-rigged operation there, half in the street, holding up a porch. I would like that to be taken a look at if you can, please. And finally, I do a lot more walking since retiring. And the other day I walked down to the Autumn Fest on Morris Street, and I have talked to you before about Morris Street, and I'd like to see some sidewalks on Morris Street, especially down near the park area where the road, Morris Street, narrows and there's no room to walk, and especially when two cars are passing each other and they're going pretty fast. It just doesn't feel very safe. I imagine for kids that are walking down Morris Street to get to the field, it seems pretty unsafe to me. Now, I realize that we're short on funds, but just going over this last year, I looked at some of the town council meetings, and there seemed to be an awful lot of grants that were found for different things like the airport, for bridges, for the rail trail, for all kinds of things. And so I don't know why we can't find a grant for the sidewalks, but I would like a sidewalk on Morris Street, because that is not only is there a park down there, but it's also the place that we go to vote. And I just want to add one more thing on a positive note. I did go to the Autumn Fest, and I had a good time, and it was a really great event, and the weather was really cooperative. And I want to say congratulations to the Downtown Partnership for a successful event. So thank you. That's all I have.
And just to piggyback on the fact that I said earlier about citizens complaining, there were a lot of complaints that had come not only to council but to the police department on activity on Brentwood Drive with ATVs and motorcycles that were ongoing in that area. And the police department, while you'd like to do things a little quicker, they have to build a case. Just kudos to the police department that they took an aggressive approach last weekend, not this past weekend, a weekend before, really addressed the situation, cited a lot of individuals, and the majority of those individuals, from what I read in the press release, none of them were from Southbridge. They were all from Holyoke, Chicopee, Auburn, different locations. They arrested an individual out of there from a warrant. They were set up to have a big picnic and camping and all that. So kudos to the police department, and that's going to be an ongoing effort. But in talking to the chief and my own experience in law enforcement, local police are not well versed when you come out of the academy on environmental laws, ATV laws. There's specific agencies to do that. He had reached out to the environmental police, and there was some reluctance to come out here to Southbridge. So as police chief and his agency really did a lot to educate his department as to what those regulations are, so that when they went out there, they were able to address it
correctly. So kudos to the police department, and that's going to be an ongoing effort. So thanks to the police department on that. So,
Thank you.
Council Lazo?
Couple of things. Tonight, the deputy chief did a PowerPoint presentation with you as the chairman and the sitting chief. I commend the work of the committee. I commend the work of the PowerPoint presentation. And I know that if there was a vacancy because of Kathy and Nicole, I didn't know if you wanted to fill it. I would be interested in filling that position if it is open. Having a construction person, even if it's not me, is always viable to any building committee or an engineer or a building inspector, as we did on the school building committee. But I'm just putting that out there. Number two, McMahon Field, for the people that don't know, it's the 100th anniversary of the rivalry between Southbridge and Bartlett. And I just would like to commend the high school students for the job that they're doing on refurbishing, painting, cleaning, and giving McMahon a facelift. And to Mike Como and the school department, they're replacing all the slats, and they're really making McMahon look like the day it was built. So I commend all the kids. I stopped in, I saw the kids paint there, and they would have a lot of fun. They're pretty good painters too. But just to commend them, and there's a lot of things that'll be going on in the upcoming months. Throwback jerseys, there's going to be a grand ball. They're talking about a lot of different stuff, and I'll bring it to you as it comes to me. And I'm sure that Mr. Daniels will wear his red and white proudly at the game. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up to the painting, kudos to the United Way as well, because they did paint the beginning on that. They were throughout town in a variety of towns doing a United Way Day of Caring, I believe it was, a give back. So there was a group of individuals out there painting, so thank you to them. Just a quick question to my good friend, Mr. Lazo. I heard a disturbing rumor over the weekend that this may be the last year of Southbridge football and that we would merge with Bartlett as a co-op program. I would hope that there is no truth to that.
Terrible rumor.
To that rumor.
That will never happen.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Chairman Jovan. I'd just like to compliment the people that put on the Autumn Fest. I was there at the beginning, saw the color guards from Southbridge High and from the Marines, I believe. And just a wonderful beginning to a great day. Wonderful weather, great food, really superb community event, something that the town can be proud of, and looking for even bigger and better next year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Council.
The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council is scheduled for Monday, October 7th, 2019, at 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous vote, please.